Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome into Miami Dolphins Today. I am your host, RC Maxfield, and around the NFL, it is cut day, unfortunately, for some out there, and the Miami Dolphins had to trim their roster down to 53 players. Let's get into it on who the Miami Dolphins cut or waived to get down to that 53-man limit. First of all, probably the biggest name cut by the Miami Dolphins actually happened yesterday when Benardrick Mckinney, a guy that they traded for only a few months ago from the Houston Texans and thought to be a starting linebacker for the Dolphins in 2021, got cut, and really this just comes down to money. But again, that's really what the NFL is. It's not for long. That's what NFL stands for. Moving on to the next set of roster cuts, you have a guy, again, that you thought maybe could start right there in MC on the on the offensive line, as we all call him down in South Beach. But again, this really comes down to a guy that they got in Greg Mance from the Ravens, coming in, taking that spot, and solidifying himself as that rotational piece on the offensive line. Nate Holley had a good preseason week 3, but overall just couldn't, make his way through that really, really good secondary that the Dolphins have. But Dolphins fans, before we get down to the nitty-gritty and the rest of the cuts, if you are excited for this season, like the video, we are only a few days away from kickoff up in New England, and it won't be Cam Newton. As the Patriots announced, Mac Jones will be the starter week 1 against the Miami Dolphins, and that Miami Dolphins secondary has to be salivating, thinking about trying to pick Mac Jones off maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 times, and he turns into a Nathan Peterman. Who knows? But let me know and like that video right now. Next set of players we've got is really just a bunch of roster bubble guys, as we all knew. These were camp bodies, and Tino Ellis is a name to look right there as the secondary, again, as I mentioned previously, just really, really deep. You have Jarvis Davis down there as well, just guys that were trying to crack the secondary and maybe could make a practice squad, but the way that the Miami Dolphins defense is set up, that secondary is absolutely elite, and these guys really just have to settle for a practice squad spot at best. Reed Sinnett right here is really the name to look at, as, again, really balled out up in Cincinnati against the Bengals, where he had that game-winning touchdown pass in the final 2 minutes. And I think that when you look at this list right here, he'll probably be the main guy that you look at, because I do think, since the Dolphins will only carry 2 quarterbacks going into week 1, that Reed Sinnett will make the practice squad and be influential on that in terms of a guy that maybe comes up later on in the season if need be. But the Dolphins want to keep him around as that QB3, but just on the practice squad and not on the 53-man roster. Patrick Laird and Malcolm Perry, as well as Kurt Merritt, are the guys that really stand out here. You think about the Miami Dolphins and how they really have Myles Gaskin. Malcolm Brown came in this offseason as well, but they don't have that true quote-unquote workhorse running back. So they were going to go by committee to some degree and use guys that really did a lot of different things well. And Patrick Laird was that guy. Remember, he had a late season push not too long ago where he was really the guy for the Dolphins at a necessity. Kind of a bit of surprising cut, but since the Dolphins only went with 3 running backs, makes a lot of sense moving forward. So he got the axe, as well as 2 wide receivers in a room full of talent. They just got to stay healthy, and Perry and Merritt getting cut as well. Shaquem Griffin got cut after he signed this offseason, moving from Seattle down to South Beach. And again, he got a lot of notoriety for potentially being a special teams guy and wanting to make it as a guy that could potentially be a pass rusher in situational type plays for the Dolphins, but unfortunately doesn't make the roster, and neither does Dokes, as he had a good solid game against the Bengals in week 3 of the preseason, but couldn't hold on to possibly be that running back 4, as the Dolphins decided just not to go with a 4th running back. So again, nothing too crazy here outside of Griffin, who I thought had a solid chance to make the roster, but definitely was on the bubble, but unfortunately for him, he will be a free agent looking for a new home. Bunch of roster, just bubble type guys here in terms of situational bodies for the preseason when it comes down to this list right here. Nobody really stands out except for maybe Benito Jones, who was fighting to make a defensive line spot, but in the end, there was plenty of guys on that line that would make an impact for the Miami Dolphins. But again, 53-man roster cuts are official now for the Dolphins as they move into preseason, or a move away from the preseason, into the regular season. Week 1 against the New England Patriots, and the Fighting Mac Jones is now up in Foxborough. But I'm curious, which Dolphins roster cut surprised you the most? And I'll be honest, if this isn't the same in the majority down in the comments, I don't know what's going on, because it's got to be Benardrick McKinney. Again, a guy that was supposed to start on the linebacking core for the Miami Dolphins gets cut, and really this just comes down to money. That's really what it came down to. The Dolphins wanted to save a few bucks, thought Landon Roberts was going to be healthy after his serious knee injury, and now you move into the season with Baker, obviously as the lead guy at the linebacking position. You thought McKinney was going to be next to him, but instead it looks like it's going to be a Landon Roberts. Let's run through the Dolphins depth charts now after they get down to 53 players. Tua and Jacoby Brissett are the only quarterbacks on the roster. Tua will be entering his first season as the Dolphins' full-time starter in 2021 and facing off against fellow Alabama graduate Mac Jones in week 1 of the regular season. Moving on to running backs, only 3 carried on the roster. As I mentioned earlier, Myles Gaskin, Malcolm Brown, and Salved Ahmed are the only running backs on the roster. A little bit surprising there, but I do expect at least 1 or 2 running backs to make the practice squad now that they have 16 spots available for that. But Dolphins fans, take a second to subscribe. This is a free channel on YouTube here. We're trying to bring you the best possible content when it comes to your Miami Dolphins. Daily videos, keeping you up to date on the Miami Dolphins all year long. All you have to do is hit that big red button, and the more subscribers we get, the more videos we'll put out there. So trying to get to 17K before week 1. Help us get there by subscribing and hitting that big red button. Moving on to the Dolphins wide receiver depth chart, Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Albert Wilson, and Jalen Waddle are the names to look at. 7 wide receivers on the depth chart for the Miami Dolphins. Going into week 1, you notice Allen Hurns as well as Lynn down there on IR. Will Fuller will be suspended for week 1, so the Miami Dolphins will only have 6 wide receivers up in Foxborough, but you have to like it if you have Devontae Parker, Albert Wilson, and of course the top 10 pick in Jalen Waddle there as well. When you look at what this wide receiver core has developed into this offseason by the Miami Dolphins and Chris Grier really targeting it as a position that needs to get better on the roster. Got to thank today's sponsor of the video, BetUS, chatsports.com/bet. Go to that website right now. Use the promo code Dolphins125 and you will get a 125% deposit bonus. What does that mean? Let's say you're going into week 1 and you want to put maybe $100 down on the Dolphins beating Mac Jones in his first game as an NFL starter. Well, they'll give you $125 to play with on the site if you use the promo code Dolphins125 to bring your grand total to $225. All you got to do, go to chatsports.com/bet, use the promo code Dolphins125, and if you don't want to use all your cash in one place, use it all season long to bet on your Miami Dolphins over on chatsports.com/bet and use the promo code Dolphins125. Moving on to the tight ends, Mike Gesicki, Adam Shaheen, and Hunter Long are the names on the roster for the Miami Dolphins when it comes to tight ends. No surprises here, as Mike Gesicki will get most of the reps there. I am very curious to see what Hunter Long develops into during his rookie season, because I do think that he has the potential to be a starting caliber tight end in the NFL in the not too distant future. Looking at the Dolphins offensive line, and this is obviously the biggest question mark when it comes to the Miami Dolphins on offense. Nothing of note here in terms of you got Grant Little in a trade from the Carolina Panthers. You got Greg Mance as well, but you keep Liam Eichenberg in the left guard spot. Won't be starting most likely. This will be your starting offensive line going into Foxborough against the Patriots. It'll go Jackson, Kinley, Dieter, Hunt, and Davis. And Davis is the guy of note, as he has been getting a lot of praise, specifically from Hunt, saying that he is the leader of the offensive line. Really curious to see how that right side of the offensive line meshes going into week 1 and further into the season. Looking at the Dolphins D-line depth chart, again, really no surprises here when it's all said and done. The guy I wanted to point out was Adam Butler, came out from the Patriots. Really a guy that I think could develop into a key rotational piece for the Miami Dolphins moving forward. We know what Agba brings to the table. We know what Davis does right there in the middle, and we think we know what Christian Wilkins can be. Hopefully he can take that next step, but I really like the addition of Adam Butler on that right side and being able to move around as well and being a key depth piece for the Miami Dolphins defensive line. Tell me, name a player you want the Dolphins to sign. I know there's been a lot of Mitchell Schwartz comments recently. I get it. Russell Okung, really just the offensive line in general. But now with cuts final around the league, who do you think the Miami Dolphins should target on the waiver wire? And maybe just who got outright released? Maybe Smokey Brown, who just got released from the Raiders. Comment below who you think the Miami Dolphins should target now that they have been released from their former teams. This is, again, the surprising part. I definitely thought we were going to be talking about McKinney right there next to Baker, but alas, we're not. It's going to be a Landon Roberts, who I do think is one of the most underrated linebackers in the NFL. But, again, coming off of a serious knee injury, when you look at this, there's a lot of talent there. And the guy that isn't mentioned as a starter right now is obviously Jalen Phillips, the top 20 pick out of UM at the outside linebacker position. I fully expect him to vault his way up into a starting role, but right now, just due to missing camp and also just getting back in the swing of things, I think he's going to be just eased into that starting role, and hopefully his production picks up along the way. But this is going to be your starting linebacker core, and the main guy to watch, obviously, as we know right now, is Jerome Baker, as he is an elite linebacker for the Dolphins right there in the middle as the Mike linebacker. But what do you say? Should McKinney be on the 53-man roster? Type Y for yes, type N for no. You know where I stand. I'm going to say no, just because it was to save some cash, right? Like, that's what it was. It's surprising, but the Dolphins have proven in the past that they do want to save some money, and this was one that, again, it was a bit of surprising news, but at the same time, they want to save a little bit of money. And that's what they did by restructuring Jakeem Grant's contract as well, where, again, it would be nice to have McKinney, but he started out with the ones in camp and then just slowly died off, according to beat reporters. So this really doesn't surprise me in the sense of them wanting to save the money, but it did actually surprise me that they ended up cutting him, just because I thought McKinney and Baker would be your starting linebackers week 1 against the Patriots. Moving on to the deepest position on this team. My goodness, there's so much talent in the secondary for the Miami Dolphins. You look at it, they have the best cornerback duo in the league, no doubt about it, in Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. You got Noah Igbenogany right there as well. You got to keep True Williams, an undrafted free agent right there. He made the roster. That might surprise some people. Holland coming in as a backup there, but that probably is going to be your starting secondary for the Miami Dolphins in week 1. And hey, we get it. He's in a Patriots jersey right there. We will change it once their photos are updated across the league. McCourty most likely to be your free safety starter for the Dolphins, but I would not be surprised if early on, maybe even by week 3 or 4, that Holland takes that starting spot from the 13-year veteran. Last but not least, the special teams unit for the Miami Dolphins. Jakeem Grant, as I mentioned, did restructure his contract and will be in Miami for at least this season. Jason Sanders, one of the best kickers in the game, no doubt about it, was going to stay on this roster. And the punter and the long snapper position stayed the same as well, with Ferguson right there as well. But be honest with me, rate the Miami Dolphins roster from a scale of 1 to 100. I'm sure y'all won't agree with me on this, but I'm going to go with an 84 on here. Give it a Madden rating. I think the offensive line needs to improve a little bit. I think that once they get healthy and they stay healthy, the Miami Dolphins will be in a great spot to compete in the AFC East. This is all just going to come down to, can you beat the Buffalo Bills once at home and maybe steal one on the road in the division?